So, elves in fantasy is quite a divisive matter. Some people just love them, and some people can't stand them. Mostly dwarves.
I don't know why. It makes me sad.
But this video is not about that. This video is about the fact that people who play half-elves in RPGs are hypocrites and cowards. Or in case of CRPGs, maybe they just choose the race of the character based on the face models available in the game. Like me in Baldur's Gate 3.
Greetings, I'm Not-a-witchr, and thanks to all the gods, I'm not an elf from the world of the Witcher. But I ask you this, when choosing a character race in an RPG that has all the classic races, what race will you most likely choose? And what race do you think most players will choose? I don't actually have an answer to that. There are no publicly available studies of this anywhere.
But if we take as an example Dungeons and Dragons, specifically the actual play shows of Critical Role, which, let's face it, for many people were the starting point into the world of tabletop RPGs, do you know how many player characters of 3 main campaigns of Critical Role were elves? None. Not a one player chose an elf of any kind. There were 3 half-elves in the first campaign that you also may know from the Legend of the Vox Machina show, and the players specifically underlined this fact in the background of their characters. Not elves. Now, before I draw any conclusions, let's remember the original creator of the idea, J.R.R. Tolkien. Not only the Lord of Rivendell is known as Elrond the Half-Elven, but also in the lore of Middle-earth there are several known cases of marriage between men and elves, like Aragorn and Arwen, and Beren and Lúthien. But actually it's not that simple. It should be mentioned that in the world of Tolkien, half-elf is not the same as, let's say, in D&D or most of the RPGs that you may have played. Basically, there are no half-elves in Middle-earth. First, Tolkien's elves are immortal. They will exist as long as Arda, the world itself, will exist. And if killed by violence, their spirits will return, and they will be reborn in the blessed lands of Valinor. So that's not just a matter of longevity. And the race of men in Tolkien's world is given the gift of Ilúvatar, or the gift of mortality, though their spirits would leave the physical world and never return. And even if you don't subscribe to Tolkien's point of view that death is a true gift, you still can see that there might be some problems because these two concepts of mortality and immortality are not compatible. And so, the children of such mixed marriages should choose either the path of elves, like Elrond, or the path of men, like Arwen. And so, there are no half-elves as a people in Middle-earth. Also, an important note is that in all the history of Middle-earth, there are only 3 known cases of mixed marriages. 2 of them in the First Age, and thanks to that, both parents of Elrond were of mixed lineage. That's why he is known as half-elven. His brother Elros chose the fate of men and started the line of the kings of Númenor, whose latest descendant is Aragorn. And no, I don't mean that he and Arwen are cousins, because there were like 60 generations of men between them. Don't you worry about possible incest. But what's important, the children of Aragorn and Arwen are not half-elves, because their mother chose the path of men. So basically, there are no half-elves in Middle-earth. Dungeons and Dragons is the main reason of the today's situation with half-elves in RPGs. And while the original D&D rule set from 1974 included only 4 playable races, human, dwarf, elf and halfling, just like the free people of Middle-earth, very soon half-elves were added as the 5th race, and they remain one of such to this very day. Why no half-dwarves or half-halflings? Could it be that's because elves are pretty and humans were not attracted to other races back in the 70s? Of course, later another mixed race was added to advanced Dungeons and Dragons, half-orcs, and also other new races, and nowadays you can play basically as whatever you want. The differences between modern D&D species are minimal and mostly cosmetic. But it was all the different tries to bring D&D to the personal computer in the form of CRPGs that cemented in the minds of many those classical playable races in any fantasy setting. Let's not forget that the Elder Scrolls games that have been around since the 90s created their own lore. And there, every breed of elf kinda has negative qualities, with Dunmer being grim, distrustful, and even disdainful to other people and each other, Bosmer being wild cannibals with horns growing from their heads sometimes, Altmer being arrogant supremacists and even invaders in Skyrim, and Orsimer being orcs. Completely different image from the Lord of the Rings, don't you agree? I wonder why there are no half-elves in Tamriel. But back to my point. Well, I don't exactly know when, but sometime in this century, people became annoyed with elves. And I'm not talking about homophobic jokes by some dudes who saw male elves as too well groomed to be straight. Not that. And not about dwarf posting. Jeez, there's a lot of people who dislike elves. What I'm talking about probably started when, thanks to Game of Thrones, fantasy as a genre became more and more popular, and so many people entering these magic worlds would bring with them their own worldviews and opinions.
Elves are mirrors to the cultures that produce them, but they in particular reflect across fault lines of insecurity, highlighting the flaws of anything less than perfect. Strange as it may sound, elves are uniquely applicable to the obsessions of our modern era, magnifying our unspoken anxieties, entangling with shifting notions of power and privilege, and on top of all that, they seem so smug about it.
Many superficial imitations of Tolkien's immortal beings portrayed elves as these arrogant and vain assholes, and eventually they regrettably became associated with pride, wealth, privilege, and social injustice. Yeah, Tolkien would cry if he knew what the fantasy genre had become. For example, remember how many times you encountered villains in RPGs who were elves? Eredin from The Witcher 3 and all of the titular Wild Hunt are elves. Weird and ugly, but not dark elves, no, real elves. Sylvanas Windrunner from the World of Warcraft, an undead high elf who is a pain in the ass of both the Alliance and the Horde. Manimarco from the Elder Scrolls games, and the whole Thalmor from Skyrim. Elder Scrolls universe is just full of evil elves. And don't even get me started on the Dragon Age series that eventually made elven gods the main antagonists. Did they ever explain why Solas is bald? No? How many others can you remember? Who did I forgot? Anyway, the public perception of elves is not favorable these days. Now, the people who dislike or even sometimes despise elves for their common traits, like eternal beauty, amazing skills in any craft, and, most importantly, condescension to the younger, more primitive races, those people would rather choose to play as half-elves, because in their mind elves are snobbish, and half-elves are more simple and honest people, who have almost all benefits of being an elf, their magical abilities, increased longevity comparing to the humans, and most importantly, the good looks. Yes, this, in my opinion, is the main reason why people prefer to play as half-elves, not humans. The hypocrisy. You want to have pointy ears, look hot, and live hundreds of years, but you don't want people to dislike you because of the elf prejudice. What does that make you? By the way, this is why Critical Role players never created an elf character. This makes me sad and angry at the same time.
It makes me sad.
Another thing that makes me sad and angry is all these new versions of elves from some games and TV shows. like the casting choices? Some why the elves from The Witcher, both in games and in the TV shows, are not conventionally attractive? Especially in both TV adaptations. Yeah, did you thought that Netflix's The Witcher was the first one? Feast your eyes upon these ancient, proud and magical people in the Polish adaptation from like 20 years ago. And what about RPGs? Did you know that in the world of Eora, the world of Pillars of Eternity and Avowed, elves are so heavily assimilated that you can't tell them apart from humans if you don't see their ears, basically. I especially remember this peasant from a little village in Pillars of Eternity who is an elf, and he swears by his goddess Hylia's tits. So courteous and so pious at the same time. I mean, please tell me, why would you make such a character an elf, if not to show that they are just as vulgar and primitive as other races? You just want to lower them to your level because you hate them and believe that they think too much of themselves. I'd really like if everybody would just stop putting elves in their fantasy universes like 15 years ago.
I hope it is just a phase of certain human societies and we will outgrow this in my lifetime. But what do you think? I would like to discuss it with you in the comments. Thank you for watching this. Consider subscribing to my channel if you like videos like this. I am still not a Witcher, and as always, take care and farewell.